Welcome to Eureka Street Crypto. This is my anti-professional crypto channel. I'm just a barely sane dude who fell down the cryptocurrency rabbit hole. This channel is my fumbling attempt to communicate myself outside my own head about my journey in the crypto space. It is basically my brain dump. None of this is actual financial advice. Good morning, everybody. I'm Eureka John, and you're at Eureka Street Crypto, broadcasting live at 6 o'clock on the dot in the morning, a.m., 6 a.m., on December 29th, 2021. It is a Wednesday, so I'm broadcasting a little later, as I don't have my crazy commute, an hour and 15 or hour and 20 minutes down all the way across Austin. I have to literally go on 4 different highways to get to my destination. Yeah, it's fun. But it's a good time to listen to podcasts, so find silver linings in every situation. But it is about 2.5 hours out of every single day. Or like Wednesdays, I work from home, where I'm basically just commuting. So yeah, it's kind of expensive on gas too. So man, we'll see where all that leads. Anyway, yeah. So this is my live morning brain dump video blog. I learn about crypto and I try to research stuff every single day. And this is my place to talk about it in the morning before I go about my day, so I don't have to bug everybody else about it. That's why I joined DAOs and stuff as well, so I could find other like-minded people to talk about this stuff with. Because yeah, I'm pretty obsessive about it, and now I have some buddies in the crypto world where I can, banter back and forth with, through DAOs, through the Discord and stuff like that, and give each other, some alpha, some stuff like that. And if you don't know what alpha is, it's like, cutting edge information, where you think something's going to do really well and you're on the bleeding edge of it, and we all recognize that, it's nothing is certain in the crypto space, and we're not necessarily here because we're looking for stability, that's for sure. Maybe in the long run, but we want to find that by being an early adopter of something, and that ends up blowing up and going mainstream, and you have found the inside edge on that, and you're an early adopter, not because you want to make like $10 million. Of course you do, but but because you love the technology too. And that's why I'm in it as well. And I constantly say Web3, not crypto, because I do believe in the Web3 technology. I love the Web3 space. Back in the 90s, even though I was in high school, I still liked the internet technology and stuff that was coming out, and I didn't really understand it, but I was fascinated by it. I would sit there in front of my computer with that dial-up connection and poke around as much as I was able to in a house with 9 kids, because everybody had to fight over the video games and the TV and the computer even. But luckily, I was one of the few in the family that was really that interested in the computer. And back then, they had the encyclopedias on the CD-ROMs. It was called Encarta. I don't know if you remember that, but I would go through Encarta and because I loved encyclopedias, and I would sit there and thumb through all the subjects on Encarta that they loaded up on the CD-ROM, and wow, it's like an entire CD-ROM. It's like an entire encyclopedia series in one CD-ROM disc. It's amazing. Wow. Then suddenly the internet came around. And then, you weren't just limited to one CD-ROM. You got the search engine, man, and yeah. So, but all that was Web 1, and that was all that information was being served to you. It was a one-way interaction, right? And then Web 2 came around, and that's when things like MySpace and Facebook and eBay and Amazon and all that stuff came about. And it became a 2-way interaction in which you got to fill in forms, upload pictures, and create your own profiles and stuff like that, buy and sell on the internet, store your card data so you could buy stuff. It became a 2-way interaction in which you got to interact with a dynamic database. And but they owned all your information, and it was corporate controlled. And those entities, which started out in Web 1.0, ended up becoming extremely powerful. And then here we are now at a situation where they are censoring us, where they are controlling us, where they are have control of all of our information, are making money off of us on a day-to-day basis, where they're constantly barraging us with ads, targeted to our search preferences, where they're hiding information from us. If we want to search for something, they will tailor the results as to what they think we should see and not necessarily as to what's out there. So this is where Web3 comes into play, where you can have control of your information and your identity, and you can log in with your wallet. You have direct control over your own finances. And tables are turning right now. We are at the bleeding edge of it. So yeah, there's a nice little rant right there. Okay. So let's go over here to the old CoinGecko and see what's up here. Bitcoin at $47,804.87. It's a bargain right now, and I never thought that I'd be saying that Bitcoin at $47,000 is a bargain, but it is. And Ethereum at 3,800. If I had any extra money right now, which I don't, I would be buying both of these. None of this is financial advice, by the way, and this is hardly even educational material. This is just a morning show. As you can tell, I probably get a lot. I get a lot of my influence from growing up listening to shock jock radio DJs. And I was that kid with a cassette tape that would sit there, and like late at night, I would try to record the club mixes, because Houston had a lot of industrial dance music and stuff during that time in the late 80s and early 90s. And I would sit there at night and I would try to record that with my cassette, or I would take the Scotch tape and put it over the corner of the cassette, so the little recording head thing wouldn't, because on like, if you bought a cassette tape, like say Michael Jackson or something like that, you couldn't record over it, right? But there's a little hack where you could take a piece of Scotch tape and put it over the corner on this little hole where this little thing goes into to prevent you from recording over it. Well, if it can't go in there, then you can suddenly record over that tape, and you have, if you didn't like a tape anymore, if you just didn't like one at all, if somebody gave you one that was lame, well, you could record over that Barry Manilow cassette tape, right? And you could put the industrial dance music club mix on there, or whatever, that Numbers or Power Tools or Club 6400 or Red Square would be playing that night. But and that was on like 93Q and Power 104 and stuff like that. But the problem is a lot of times the DJ would sit there and talk over the music, and it was so annoying. So you were sitting there trying to press play, but not too early, but not too late, to where you cut off most of the song or a lot of the song. But the DJ would sometimes just ramble, and you're sitting there just steaming and fuming and going like, oh, just shut up so I can record the song, and you want to hear, that PoS and AVAX song, or, CCCP, or, Microchip League or something. And then you're sitting there and you hit play, and you still catch a little bit of the DJ in there. And it's, that's what you had before internet. I don't know how I got on that tangent. Oh man. How did I get on that tangent? I don't know. Anyway, so back to CoinGecko. Yeah, man, this is what happens in the morning. Anyway, I'm highly influenced by morning shock jock radio DJs and by nighttime club DJ, radio DJs and stuff like that, as you can probably tell. So this is not educational material. This is not financial advice. That's where I was. Yeah. Okay. Solana is at 175.90. It's been up in the low 200s and it's back down. Cardano $1.41. Apparently he's, Charles Hoskinson is coming out with another goals of 2022 speech or whatever. We'll see where that goes. This has been an ongoing issue with the Cardano people and the Cardano holders. Is every year it's continual promises, and they say, well, it takes a long time to perfect the aircraft. You don't want to sit there and try to make changes to an aircraft midair. Well, yeah, I get that, but you gotta test fly the aircraft at some point. I don't know. Cardano's beat me down, honestly. So, it's just my opinion, man. There's a lot of very faithful Cardano people out there, and more power to you. You're running those delegator nodes, and Cardano, to be fair, is extremely delegated out in all the, the staking nodes. Okay. and they're focused on Africa, which is a huge market and everything like that. So I hope that something goes good. But I also worry too that Cardano is so focused around one huge cult of Charles Hoskinson personality, and yeah, I mean the guy's a slick salesman, so watch out. All right, so USDC as a dollar, it's a stable coin, all right? XRP 85 cents, Terra 86.68, Polkadot 28.41, Avalanche 107.16. So I was going to talk about Avalanche today. All right, so I have bookmarked on here an Avalanche thread. I'm already like, what, 11 minutes in? Yeah, I was going to talk about Avalanche today. So, all right, so here, Ryan Sean Adams, the one of the main people, one of the co-founders of Bankless, and that's a really good podcast. I listen to it, quite a bit, several times a week on my commute. He says, I mean, they're definitely like super, bullish on Ethereum all the time, and so they don't really necessarily want to run out there and promote, other blockchains, and they definitely don't like Cardano, and I don't necessarily follow their sentiment on Cardano hate. I don't hate Cardano, but but he actually posted. Ryan Sean Adams says, "What's your bull case for the value of the AVAX token? AVAX token is the Avalanche token, right?" So I mean, he's actually like legitimately inquiring about other tokens. He's done that with Solana. He gave Solana a fair shot to explain their value proposition on the Bankless show, and they did, and it was a good interview, I thought. So yeah, I like the fact that they are open to hearing about other blockchains and really kind of wanting to learn more about it. So let's see here. Yeah, so this is the old Twitter thread. So let me zoom in this Twitter thread a little bit so you can kind of see it and get rid of all this noise and chatter out on the outsides. So yeah, Avalanche, if you don't know, is another layer 1 blockchain. And by layer 1, as you know, Ethereum gas fees have gotten really high. And it's in the middle of all this merge that's happening between Ethereum 1.0 and Ethereum 2.0, even though ETH maxis don't like to call them 1.0 and 2.0. But that's basically what it is. They're moving from proof of work mechanism, which is what Bitcoin is and several other blockchains, to proof of stake mechanism. And proof of work and proof of stake are very different. Proof of work is where you have the miners mine cryptocurrency. And then proof of stake is where you have validators and you have the token holders be able to lock those tokens in, and they're the ones that provide the consensus mechanism. So here's an article. This is an old article. It's an oldie but a goodie, and it was written back in October 18th, 2020. Here's a pretty good little summary of proof of stake, AVAX proof of stake down here. Let me see here. Okay, so it's way down here at the bottom. So staking. In the early days of Bitcoin, anybody could mine Bitcoin with modest hardware, and the rate of increase in supply was high. Okay, let me zoom this out so you can kind of read the whole thing along with me. Okay. Then, as time progressed, reward rates continuously decreased, reducing the rate at which supply increased. Nowadays, mining Bitcoin is really only viable in countries with very cheap electricity and require expensive hardware to run as part of a mining pool. There are just 5 mining operations which control the majority of Bitcoin's hashing power. Now, this was written in October of 2020. Things have changed since then. All that mining hash power, like China totally banned cryptocurrency mining. Like they literally shut down tons of operations, and a lot of that moved to other countries, including Texas here. There's a huge mining operation just east of Austin here, and I believe it's Rockdale, Texas, which is just south of Taylor, Texas, I believe, or just north of it. And there's a cool skate park in Taylor, by the way. Anyway, and then there's also that big Tesla plant. There's in West Texas a huge mining operations. And the reason I say Tesla plant is because Tesla has also toyed around with incorporating mining within its cars. So, and it just so happens to be very, very, very close to one of the largest Bitcoin mining operations, the Tesla plant that they're building, right next door to each other. I mean, I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but oh man. So Anyway, so a lot of things have changed since they wrote this, and Bitcoin uses a lot of renewable energy sources as well to mine as well. Proof of work mining has changed quite a bit. There's definitely, I mean, there's like stranded natural gas pools that they're mining from. There's geothermal energy that they're mining from, wind and solar. So there's a lot of it's gotten a lot cleaner. That's all I gotta say. And so to the point where I think a lot, I don't have numbers for this, but I think the majority of it is clean mining now. Yeah. So Avalanche uses proof of stake model instead of proof of work. So proof of work is mining, and proof of stake. Avalanche uses proof of stake model for network security instead of proof of work, where you only need modest hardware requirements and it doesn't use enormous amounts of energy. Avalanche's revolutionary consensus mechanism is able to scale millions of validators participating in consensus at once, offering unparalleled decentralization. Running a validator and staking with Avalanche provides extremely competitive rewards of between 9.69% and 11.54%. That's pretty good, a hell of a lot better than a bank, that's for sure, depending on the length you stake for. The maximum rate is earned by staking for a year, while the lowest rate is for 14 days. There's no slashing, which means whenever a node isn't up and running or doesn't really perform that well, Ethereum will just slash that node. So you don't need to worry about hardware failure or a bug in the client, which causes you to lose all of your part of your stake. Instead, with Avalanche, you only need to currently maintain at least 60% uptime to receive rewards. If you fail to meet this requirement, you don't get slashed, but you don't receive the rewards. The minimum amount of required AVAX to stake is 2,000 AVAX. That was back in October. AVAX has increased significantly since then, so I don't know if that's changed. I have a little video that I made for Bankless quite a while back about what proof of stake is, and it might help to explain it to some people. So if you know what it is, I'm sorry, bear with me. But if you don't, maybe this will help explain it a little bit, and I'll just play it real quick for you. So let's see here. Hi, I'm Eureka John, and this is a Bankless bit for you. This Bankless bit is about proof of stake consensus mechanisms. A proof of stake consensus uses token staking on the network to secure the network. When you hold a token that is based on a proof of stake consensus mechanisms, you have the option to stake that token to help secure the network and to earn a portion of the transaction fees as a result of your participation. This can actually result in some pretty good passive income if done right. When you stake your tokens on the network, you're helping to prevent a 51% attack. A 51% attack is when an outside person or an entity like a company, country, corporation, buys up 51% of the network and attains a majority control over that network. This allows them to corrupt or make decisions on the network in their favor. This is bad and not what a decentralized blockchain is supposed to be about. In the case of a proof of stake network, that person would attempt to buy more than 51% of that token supply. So, how do they do this? The mechanics can be seen in a simple supply-demand graph right here. You got your supply line, your demand line, and your red point of equilibrium, and that's right where the price sits. So, if someone wants to come in and buy up 51% of that network, this will shift the demand curve to the right. And suddenly the price, as a result, is higher the more demand there is. Right here, the red dot went higher. The higher price makes it more difficult for anyone to come in and buy up a 51% of the network. However, it is still possible, even though that price is just a little bit higher. So this is where staking comes in. With staking, you lock up your supply. What does that do to the supply? Well, this pushes the supply curve to the left, and as you can see, the price went up again. This pushes the price even higher than it was when just the buying demand was affecting it. This makes it significantly more expensive for anyone to buy out the network. However, it's still possible, and this is where the crazy part comes in. When people stake to the network and the amount of tokens that are staked to the network is over 50% of the supply, then it is physically impossible for someone to come in and buy out the 51% of the network. Absolutely physically impossible. Not going to happen. So unless people unstake, there's literally not the supply physically available to attempt a 51% attack. This is a secure network. So that's how staking secures the network. you're locking your tokens out of circulation, preventing a 51% attack, and as a result, increasing the value of the network and the value of your tokens. It's a win-win. When broken down into simple supply and demand mechanisms, proof of stake is so simple, yet so effective. Absolutely amazing. Thank you for watching this Bankless bit. Okay, so I hope that helped out a little bit if you didn't really understand what proof of stake was. Yeah, I made that video for Bankless just kind of as a prototype, and I never really used it for anything. So I kind of have little things like that sitting around on my computer, and I just happened to discover it this morning. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. Back to AVAX and back to this thread, now that you kind of know what proof of stake versus proof of work is. So anyway, Ryan Sean Adams says, what's your bull case for the value of the AVAX token? All right. So this guy, Kevin Seknicki, good vibes only, and he has a little AVAX symbol in his thing. So he's obviously bullish on AVAX. He says, I'll take a stab at quantifying some of the components that I deem to be good design, in quotes. I can't really make any assessments on bullishness, in quotes. I can only assess engineering design. Okay. All right, Kevin, let's see what you have to say. Protocol and network design. Number one. Avalanche uses a fundamentally new consensus design that enables the system, in the normal case, to confirm transactions in a manner of under a second to at most a couple of seconds, while keeping number of validators essentially unbounded. Said differently, the big breakthrough, I know it's a strong word, but it's genuinely an important advancement in consensus of Avalanche. So the big breakthrough of Avalanche is that time to finality is actually nearly independent of the number of full block producing validators. No other proof of stake system has this, and they abbreviate proof of stake POS. Every time I see proof of stake abbreviated as POS, you know what I'm thinking: piece of shite, and not necessarily proof of stake. So I have to redact that in my mind every single time or correct it in my mind. So it's kind of like a little delay mechanism in my head. No other piece of shite system has this. All right, so yeah. So it's generally important. Okay, the big breakthrough of Avalanche is that time to finality is actually nearly independent of the number of full block producing validators. Okay, so somebody asked, would composability be an issue of different chains? And so all right. So let's go to the next. Wait, where did this thread go? Come on now. All right, let me. Oh my gosh. All right, so let me find the correct thread here. All right. Okay, so where'd the rest of the thread go? Okay. And there's this entire thread, and I can't seem to pull out the rest of the thread. Okay, so let me just tweet this. Let me get this. This is a bull case. Ryan Sean Adams. Well, shoot. Okay, I can't find the rest of that thread. Yeah, people were. Yeah, it made a really good thread about all the subnets and stuff like that, and yeah. All right, well. Okay, so I mean, there's a lot of people sitting here making bullish cases, like this one's here. Ultra cheap bridge on Ethereum. AVAX will fade away once centralized exchange support withdraw to L2. I wonder. Okay, so some people are saying that AVAX is going to be completely irrelevant once centralized exchanges will go straight to layer 2 Ethereum solutions. I don't necessarily believe that this is the case. And then somebody below them responded, AVAX is making all ETH layer 2s irrelevant. So somebody says that Avalanche is making all things like Arbitrum and ZK Sync and Optimism completely irrelevant. That it says never listen to a penguin on Twitter, because the guy that said that above is a penguin. Better listen to a funky chicken NFT. All right. So anyways, and then that's where somebody down here puts this link to this article that I just read about proof of stake from. So let me go back up to this article here. That is talking, this older article that is talking about Avalanche here. And it's a really good summary of Avalanche, a hell of a lot better than I summarized. Let's play this little video. It's a little 2-minute video on what is Avalanche. And this is a good one too.
The financial fabric is composed of fragmented markets due to regulatory and geographical differences. Until now, there has been no easy way to create and trade digital assets in a legally compliant way. In fact, there is over $800 trillion in world value of assets, yet there is not a unified global marketplace for them. What if we could reimagine financial markets as a unified global network, where deploying assets were as easy as sending an email? What if exchanging financial products was unified, so one could trade equities, commodities, alternative assets, and more, all on the same global platform? AVA is the infrastructure to make this possible by enabling any financial network to plug into one universal platform. Welcome to the Internet of Assets, a global financial network for the issuing and trading of all digital goods. AVA can support such a large universal network because of its unprecedented engine. AVA is built with speed that is only possible with a recent breakthrough in distributed systems, known as Avalanche consensus. Current decentralized networks are built on over-decade-old consensus protocols that have issues scaling with high performance. But now, there is Avalanche consensus. It enables millions of participants to validate while processing thousands of transactions per second, down to sub-second finalization times. It's blazing fast, really fast. AVA pairs this engine with an architecture that can fit the custom needs of unique financial products and decentralized applications. This customizability is achieved through subnetworks, enabling anyone to launch their own tailor-made network with custom virtual machines. AVA lays the foundation for a platform of platforms, where there are thousands of unique subnetworks that can connect and create one unified global market. An asset issuer on AVA has the flexibility to digitize any asset, starting with determining the features, such as privacy-enabled transactions. The issuer can decide whether it wants to be on a permissioned or permissionless network. The asset can be built with custom smart contracts to help design the marketplace functionality. And there can be custom conditions designed to meet compliance requirements. Then launch the asset into the global market. AVA is fast, flexible, secure, with a custom plug-and-play infrastructure that is built to serve the needs of decentralized applications, asset issuers, and financial marketplaces. AVA, your one global Internet of Assets. What will you deploy?
All right, so yeah, that's a pretty good little synopsis of it. And let me go back over here to my bookmarks. I think I figured out where to find the rest of that thread, because that is a really good thread on a lot of the AVA features, AVAX features. So, all right, so show replies. Okay, and let me let this drop down. So protocol and network design, Avalanche uses a fundamentally new consensus design that enables the system in the normal case to confirm transactions in a matter of under a second to at most a couple of seconds, while keeping the number of validators essentially unbounded. Said differently, the big breakthrough of Avalanche is that the time to finality is actually nearly independent of the number of full block producing validators. No other proof of stake system has this. Then number 4, while the core consensus engine is both A, extremely fast, and B, extremely decentralized, Avalanche recognizes that it's still impossible to be future-proof while using a monolithic design approach. If billions of daily active servers are to be onboarded to a new crypto economy, a single ledger isn't sufficient. Instead, Avalanche takes a modular design approach using subnets. Subnets are generalized, fully customizable blockchains that run side by side with the Avalanche primary subnet. So, this is where Ryan, Sean Adams, and Bankless were sitting there saying that that's where all the layer 1 blockchains are going to be left in the dust. They're saying that Ethereum is becoming, through this merge from Ethereum 1.0 to 2.0, it's becoming a modular blockchain instead of one big monolithic blockchain. And what I mean by that is think of a computer chip, right? And you have, a computer chip's continually expanding according to Moore's law, and getting larger to be able to have more transistors on it and stuff like that. And it's continually scaling up and getting bigger and bigger. But there becomes a point where you can only fit so much on one chip. So the modular design, what that does, it breaks it out into several different smaller sub chips. So you have the one chip in the middle coordinating and controlling the data layer, the execution layer, all these different layers and functions are broken out into modular design, into other chips that will focus specifically on that type of task, and it will all be controlled by one little central chip. And so the same thing is happening with blockchains, and that's what's happening with Ethereum right now. It's breaking out into a data layer, a data storage layer, an execution layer, and different types of layers of different functions that happen because when a block is created, there's a lot of different things that happen. There's storage, there's execution, there's I'm only saying those two right now because those are the only two at the top of my head. But there's a lot of other different types of functions that happen whenever a block is made, and all those different functions are broken out into different subchips. And so that's a modular design for a blockchain, and that's what Ryan Sean Adams and Bankless was sitting there saying that is making Ethereum unique from all other layer 1 blockchains. Well, it's not necessarily the case with Avalanche, because Avalanche is also using this modular design and creating these subnets. So he says here, Kevin says, while the core consensus engine is both extremely fast and extremely decentralized, Avalanche recognizes that it's still impossible to be future-proof while using that monolithic design approach, one big chip. If billions of daily active users are to be onboarded to a new crypto economy, a single ledger isn't sufficient. One big ledger. No, you have to break it down. Instead, Avalanche takes a modular designed approach using subnets. Subnets are generalized, fully customizable blockchains that run side by side the Avalanche primary subnet. So there's the Avalanche one, and there's all these other little subnets customized towards whatever industry or company or features that are needed. So these subnets can share the security of the default subnet, a la layer 2. So it's kind of like a layer 2 solution that's on Ethereum right now that you see with all the roll-up solutions like Optimism and Arbitrum and stuff. So they can share the security of the default subnet, or they can be independent. In fact, subnets are meant to be so efficient and easy that I totally expect there to be a layer 1 as a service feature where each dApp can potentially run on a new subnet. There's so many cool things that can be done with subnets, but generally think of the Avalanche network design as a more generalized and powerful version of Ethereum's layer 2 modular design. So yeah, Avalanche as a layer 1 is modular, so it's kind of a layer 1 and layer 2 combined in one blockchain. So, and then down to point number 8, virtual environment and tooling. So since Avalanche subnets, including the primary subnet, can trivially inherit the Ethereum virtual machine, this means that the developer onboarding and tooling is extremely efficient. Everything works out of the box with Avalanche. So if you know Ethereum and you can develop on the Ethereum virtual machine, you can do Avalanche. And then number 9, any new subnets that launch can trivially launch a new Ethereum virtual machine subnet and just redeploy the contracts there. The economy for Avalanche can be much more efficient since the rate of experimentation is so much higher. And then number 10, Ethereum virtual machine isn't the only possible virtual machine. The Avalanche virtual machine is another choice, which is a simplified Bitcoin scripting virtual machine. But there are other exciting ones that can launch as subnets, including WASM and privacy-preserving virtual machines. So Ethereum uses the account-based model, and account-based is like kind of like your credit card. It's like your bank account. You have debits and credits to some kind of ledger. Avalanche uses UTXO, just like Bitcoin, which is unspent transaction output, and that's kind of like cash. I give you 10, but I want to spend $7 on something, but I give you a $10 bill and you give me $3 change. And so there's no real account there. There's just, currency and change made and stuff like that. So it's a different way of accounting and doing things. So a lot of people say it's superior. That's up to you to decide. But okay, so they go into token distribution here on the Avalanche token. So it seems pretty fair and all that stuff. I don't really get that much into tokenomics. Some people love tokenomics, but it's not really my shtick. So here's some utility. Scarcity alone is not good enough to be a store value. There needs to be strong demand. Avalanche offers incredible utility, not only in the consumer space, but also with enterprises as well. Payments. Bitcoin is a decentralized peer-to-peer payment network, but its adoption has been limited to only being able to process approximately 7 transactions per second. Achieves transaction finality in 1 hour and has relatively high transaction fees compared to other cryptocurrencies. While Avalanche shares several features of Bitcoin, such as using the Satoshi's unspent transaction output model I just told you about, and structures transactions like SegWit, it offers far more performance. Avalanche has achieved in excess Visa level throughput of 6,500 transactions per second, sub-second finality, and able to accommodate millions of validators, all participating in consensus for unparalleled decentralization. Avalanche cater for payments. Doesn't only cater for payments in its native token, but also any other asset, including stablecoins. So burning of AVAX tokens, fees for all sorts of operations on the network are paid out in AVAX. These are then burned, reducing the supply and increasing the scarcity of AVAX for all token holders. If the number of AVAX burned exceeds the amount of minted and staking rewards, then this creates deflationary pressure. Unlike Ethereum's EIP 1559 proposal, all the fee is burnt rather than part, and also there's a maximum amount of AVAX of 720 million, and this can never be exceeded, whereas there are no limits with the size of Ethereum's supply. So Avalanche was built for serving financial markets in mind. It has native support for easily creating and trading digital assets with complex custom rule sets that define how the asset is handled and traded to ensure regulatory compliance can be met. So yeah, I mean, obviously in finance, there's all these different things going on, like KYC, different geographical regulations and stuff like that. And that's where these subnets come into play. You can make different subnets that comply with different type of regulatory structures. Yeah, and Avalanche has 3 different blockchains. There's the X chain, the decentralized platform for creating and trading smart digital assets. And it's an instance of the Avalanche virtual machine. There's the C chain. It's an instance of the Ethereum virtual machine. It's compatible with all the key Ethereum tooling, so anybody that can develop on Ethereum can come over to Avalanche. And so current Ethereum applications can easily try Avalanche and take advantage of being able to process thousands of transactions per second, finalize transactions in seconds, extremely low gas fees, and Solidity works out of the box. Solidity is Ethereum's scripting language to make smart contracts with. So all gas fees are paid in AVAX, which are also burned. Then there's the P chain. I don't deal with the P chain too much. It's the metadata chain on Avalanche and coordinates all the validators. And I'm not running a validator, so it's just so there's a little graph that shows the little specifics. I'm going to link this in the video description, by the way. Here's the subnets, and this is where I think one of the main features of Avalanche is that differentiates it. Avalanche is a platform of platforms, ultimately consisting of thousands of subnets to form a heterogeneous interoperable network of many blockchains that takes advantage of the revolutionary Avalanche consensus protocols to provide a secure, globally distributed, interoperable, and trustless framework offering unprecedented decentralization whilst being able to comply with regulatory requirements. Avalanche allows anyone to create their own tailor-made application-specific blockchains supporting multiple custom virtual machines such as EVM and WASM, and written in popular languages like Go, rather than lightly used, poorly understood languages like Solidity and Haskell. This virtual machine can then be deployed on a custom blockchain network called a subnet, which consists of a dynamic set of validators working together to achieve consensus on a state of many blockchains where complex rule sets can be configured to meet regulatory compliance. So each subnet can have its own token or fee structure. Just like somebody building a blockchain on top of the Ethereum blockchain, like ERC20 tokens and stuff like that. They may also choose to have staking and token transaction fees paid in AVAX stablecoins or their own token. So AVAX is a consensus platform enabling projects to focus on the application layer by porting their blockchains over and continue to use their existing token apps, but benefit from the increased performance, sub-second finality, and unparalleled decentralization that AVAX offers while being interoperable with all the other subnets that are on there. So an example of another subnet due to launch soon is Ethereum. Ethereum is a spoon or a friendly fork, maybe a spork, of Ethereum, which benefits from the Avalanche consensus protocol and applications in the Ethereum ecosystem. Its native token ATH will be airdropped to ETH holders. I wonder if that happened. This was written back in October, so I never saw it. But then again, I really wasn't knowing anything about Avalanche back then. So anyway, the traditional finance market is huge, with the derivatives market alone worth a staggering $800 trillion. I can't even fathom that. But there are strict regulations, and financial institutions need to ensure they can remain compliant. This is why subnets are so important. They enable complex rule sets to be enforced on who can validate a subnet. For example, it may require them to be located in a given country, passing a KYC check, or holding a certain license. So you may have one subnet for validating a set of blockchains that deal with trading of securities in the US, which requires validators to be located in the US and hold certain licenses, for example. So private subnets are similar to enterprise blockchains, such as R3's Corda and Hyperledger and Quorum, are also possible to where access is restricted and the contents of blockchains only visible to those participants. You can even make private blockchains out of it. So here's kind of a little ecosystem graph. Everybody loves a good graph. So unlike most other staking platforms, which can have an unlimited supply and continuously increase their supply at a compounded rate, Avalanche has a fixed cap supply of 720 million AVAX tokens, creating scarcity. And then they talk about everything minted, what's been minted, how it's distributed, and all that stuff. Then they talk about the cap supply, and then it has a cap supply plus burning. Then it goes back to the proof of stake thing. I've already gone over that. And so it says, as Avalanche uses proof of stake instead of proof of work, a large percentage of the supply will be continuously locked up. And that's where I was talking about in the video about, the more validators that lock up the supply, and if over 51% of the validators have the supply locked up, then it's impossible for somebody to buy more than 51% of the supply and overtake the network. And so 51% attacks are completely impossible. Anyway, I'm out of time. I'm at 41 minutes. This has been long, and I did not mean to. A lot of it was just me rambling, so I'm sorry about that. But I tend to do that, and that's just part of what the show is about. So, there are better places to learn about Avalanche than my show, honestly. But this show is really about me too, just trying to figure this out for myself. So, yeah. All right, man. All right, well, I will talk to you guys tomorrow at noon today. I'm jumping online, and I'm the host of the Taoists podcast, and we're going to be interviewing Griff Green and Lauren Luce today at 10 o'clock Pacific time, noon Central Standard Time, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, U.S., and they're going to be talking about Giveth.io, and it's a new way to donate, and using things like augmented bonding curves, tokenomics, complete transparency in giving and public goods and charity and everything like that. So it ought to be a really interesting and fun interview. I'm looking forward to it. So I'll see you guys at noon Central Time on the Taoists Twitter. All right. Well, I will talk to you later. Bye. Thank you for making it to the end of this program. If you actually like this content, give a thumbs up. And if you want to hear more, just hit the subscribe button. I'm available on YouTube, Odyssey, and BitChute, and on all the major podcasting platforms in audio version. Spotify specifically. If you would like to follow and leave a review, that would help a lot. I am also available on Twitter at EurekaJohn1. That's EUREKA John, JOHN, and the number 1. My DMs are always open. Feel free to shoot me a message. Thanks again.